Good morning, church.
Good morning, Jenna.
Oh, come on. I know y'all are awake. Good morning, church. All right. So if y'all wouldn't mind, I'd love to just jump right in. So if y'all would turn to Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 6 and 7 with me. All right, so verse 6. These commandments, so the one that Kyle and Alicia just talked about, love and obedience, these commandments that I give you today are to be upon your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. So let me give you a little background about what's going on at this time. This was about 1,400 years before Jesus was even born, so obviously there was no Jesus and there was no Bible. So Moses is telling the Jews how important it is for all of them to pass down these commandments, because that's how it was done, by word of mouth. Let's go ahead and start breaking these down. Verse 6, these commandments that I give to you today are to be upon your hearts. You first, you have to know these commandments in order to teach them. You can't teach anything without a curriculum, right? So it also says in your hearts, which is important. Proverbs 3:3 tells us to write it on the tablet of your heart. And it's not an iPad, it's not an e-reader. Back then it was a stone. And when you put something in stone, it's there permanent. You can't backspace, you can't delete. And that's exactly what he's telling us to do. Make these commandments permanent in your heart so that you can go and tell it to others. Verse 7, the first part, we're just going to look at that first. Impress them on your children. To impress means to fix your mind firmly on. And if we're having our kids fix their minds firmly on God's commandments, that's going to help them with their decision making. It's going to help them throughout life. And so that's super important. And it's you impress them. It's not the church's responsibility. The church is awesome, right? It's where we get to come fellowship with people. It's where we get to come worship. But there's too much good stuff in this thing right here to only teach it one day a week. There is no reason that you should not be telling everyone about all the right things that are in here. All right, the second part says, talk about them when you sit, when you walk, when you lie down, and when you get up. And these are constant words, right? We're always doing one of these things, or at least a version of it. And that's kind of showing that we should be talking about this 24/7, 365. Being a Christian is a full-time job, it's not a part-time job. When we accept Christ into our hearts, we're saying, you know what, I'm yours forever. I'm into your family, and that's that. You can't pick and choose, oh, you know, I want to talk about you here, or I want to talk about you here, but I don't want to talk about you in this part of my life. That's not how it works. God doesn't want lukewarm Christians, right? He wants us to be on fire for Him all the time. So, just putting it another way, if we want people to know God, we have to make God a part of our everyday life, part of our everyday actions, our everyday behaviors. Parents, if you want your kids to follow God, you have to make it a part of your life. Students, if you want your friends to follow God, you have to make it a part of your everyday life, and we have to see Him in everything we do, not just in church. Another thing about these words is they're action words. They're not passive, okay? Sitting, walking, lying, standing, they're doing words, right? And this kind of reminds me of, there's a difference between knowing about God, passive. Anyone can know about God, but truly knowing God, active, that's what we want, okay? There's a man named Ron Luce. He did a study, and 4% of my generation, the students' generation, are Bible-based believers. That means 96% of them are not. What? Yeah, and you know why that is? Because we're not passing down the commandments like we were told to. If we had been doing that the whole time, we wouldn't have the statistics where only 4%. And that's what's going to keep happening if we don't start, right? Another way that I could put this to make a little more sense would be, since 96% are not Bible-based believers, us church, we as a church in total and as individuals might be the only Bible that some people will ever read. I'll say it again, so let's say it again. We might be the only Bible that some people will ever read. Y'all can clap for that? Let me pose this question that with teaching others? Is it telling them, about God's love and His grace and how we should obey that and be just like Him? Or is it teaching him disobedience and improper behavior? And it's okay to go here with these people and do the same every once in a while. It's okay, because it's not. At church, I need to remember that as we're going in the summer, back to work tomorrow, or school, or even for us seniors going to college, that we need to teach others through His Word. And most importantly, through our actions and our words, just as we've been taught in just the way that Moses commanded. On behalf of Kyle and Alicia and all the other seniors here, I just want to thank all of the parents, pastors, and mentors for preparing us for the wonderful, perfect plan and purpose that God has for our lives, and for putting those commandments on your heart so that we could impress them on our minds, so that when it's our time to pass it down to the next generation, that we're ready for that. So students, now would be a really awesome time to give a big round of applause and recognize all of the parents and pastors and mentors that we've had for all that they've done for us.